It is a bright, warm afternoon. You step out onto your back patio, coffee in hand, and look out over your yard. You see the freshly cut green grass, the vibrant red roses, the bright yellow sunflowers you spent weeks cultivating. You feel a deep sense of pride. You think you know exactly what your property looks like. But you couldn't be more wrong. Your human vision is fundamentally limited. You are trapped in a narrow, restricted band of light, completely oblivious to the massive, invisible dimension operating right in front of your face. When a bee buzzes past your ear and enters your garden, it doesn't see the same peaceful green landscape you do. It crosses into an entirely different world, a glowing, high-speed, high-stakes alien metropolis, filled with secret messages, hidden runways, and neon signs you are biologically incapable of perceiving. If you could borrow the eyes of a bee for just 60 seconds, your quiet backyard would instantly transform into something completely unrecognizable. Today, we're going to tear away the blindfold. We're going to expose the unseen world hiding in plain sight, decode the hidden language of flowers you walk past every single day, and uncover the innocent, everyday things humans do that are silently blinding and starving the very creatures that keep our ecosystem alive. To understand what a bee sees, we first have to discard everything we think we know about color. Humans see the world through 3 channels: red, green, and blue. We're proud of that. But bees operate on a completely different biological frequency. They cannot see red at all. Your prized crimson roses. To a bee, they don't stand out. They look like dark, uninteresting shapes that blend into the background, nearly indistinguishable from shadows. But where bees lose red, they gain something that makes that trade look like a spectacular deal. They see ultraviolet light. Imagine walking outside and suddenly seeing the entire world lit up under a massive, permanent black light. That is the everyday reality for a wild bee. When you look at a yellow sunflower or a purple petunia, you think you're seeing the whole picture. You're not. The flower is hiding something from you. To a bee, those petals are covered in glowing ultraviolet patterns. Scientists call them nectar guides. Think of them as invisible, luminescent runways pointing directly to the center of the bloom, exactly like the lights on an airport tarmac guiding a plane in for landing. The flowers in your yard aren't sitting there passively. They are broadcasting. They are transmitting bright, urgent signals that tell incoming insects exactly where to land and where the food is. You walk past these flowers every day, completely blind and deaf to this vibrant, high-stakes conversation happening inches from your face. You are wandering through a glowing, bustling city center while wearing a blindfold. And this ultraviolet vision goes far beyond flowers. When a bee looks up at the sky, it doesn't see a flat blue dome or a wash of white clouds. It sees polarized light, a massive, luminous compass crisscrossed with geometric patterns that allow it to navigate with precision. Even on a completely overcast day, your yard is blanketed in a glowing GPS grid that you will never see. This invisible world brings us to a devastating reality. Because we can't see what bees see, we constantly make terrible, unintentional mistakes when we design our yards. Every spring, millions of people head to garden centers and buy the most spectacular flowers they can find. Bright, full, fluffy blooms, particularly those bred to have double petals, the kind that look extraordinary in a planter and photograph beautifully on Instagram. To a human, these flowers are stunning. To a bee, they are a cruel biological trick. In breeding these flowers to look perfectly symmetrical and extra lush for human eyes, horticulturalists have accidentally erased the ultraviolet nectar guides. The runway lights have been switched off. When a bee flies over your expensive, carefully arranged flower bed, it doesn't see a glowing buffet. It sees a dark, confusing void. And it gets worse. Those extra petals physically block the bee from reaching whatever tiny amount of pollen might still exist deep inside. You think you've built a sanctuary. Through a bee's eyes, you've filled your yard with counterfeit food, empty plates dressed up to look like a feast. And a bee cannot afford to waste energy on empty plates, because there is something else about their biology that most people never consider. Bees don't just see differently from us, they experience time differently. Have you ever tried to swat a bee away from your face, only to watch it dodge your hand before you even finished the swing? You probably assumed the bee was simply fast, but that's not quite right. Human eyes process the visual world at roughly 24 to 60 frames per second. A bee's brain operates at nearly 10 times that speed. They process hundreds of frames per second. When you swing your hand at a bee, you feel like you're moving fast. From the bee's perspective, your hand is drifting through the air in slow motion. They watch it coming, calculate the air pressure shifting around them, and step aside with time to spare. To a bee, we are enormous, lumbering creatures stumbling in slow motion through their high-speed world. A rainstorm that looks like a blurry curtain of water to us. A bee sees individual droplets falling like slow-motion meteors, each one methodically dodged mid-flight. This extreme visual speed isn't a luxury. It's a survival requirement. A worker bee flying through your yard at 15 miles per hour on a windy day isn't seeing a green blur. It's processing every microscopic detail of every flower in sharp focus in real time, analyzing the size, shape, and ultraviolet signature of each bloom as it passes. These are tiny organic supercomputers mapping your yard with a level of precision that modern drone technology still struggles to match. And they don't forget what they map. When a scout bee enters your yard for the first time, it doesn't wander randomly hoping to stumble across a dandelion. It logs your property. It notes the shape of your roofline, the angle of your patio furniture, the shadow your oak tree casts at midday, the exact location of the richest nectar patches in your grass. It builds a three-dimensional, ultraviolet, polarized map inside its brain. Then it goes home and shares it. Back at the hive, in complete darkness, the scout performs what scientists call the Waggle dance. Through a precise sequence of movements and vibrations, it transmits the GPS coordinates of your yard to hundreds of other bees. It communicates the exact distance, the precise angle from the sun, and because the sun moves across the sky while the dance is happening, the bee mathematically accounts for the Earth's rotation in real time, continuously updating the flight angles as it moves. Your backyard is a documented, reviewed, actively circulated destination on a local insect network. The bees in your yard have already briefed their entire family. They have mapped your property. They know your yard better than you do. But color, time, and memory still aren't the full picture. There is one more layer to the bee's perception of your yard, and it may be the most mind-bending of all. Bees can sense the electrical fields of your garden. Every flower rooted in the earth carries a slight negative electrical charge. As a bee moves through the air, the friction of flight gives its body a positive charge. When a bee approaches a flower, it doesn't even need to make contact to know whether it contains nectar. It can feel the electrical field pulling against its own body from a distance. When a bee lands and feeds, its positive charge neutralizes the flower's negative charge for a short window of time. The next bee that flies past senses the altered field and instantly knows this one's already been emptied. Move on. They are reading an invisible real-time electrical billboard. You are standing in the middle of a crackling communication grid, completely numb to the current flowing around your feet. This fragile, hyper-intelligent system is under constant attack from the people who live above it. We've already talked about how modified flowers act as counterfeit food, but there are darker, more pervasive habits in modern yard care. When you hire a company to spray herbicides and pesticides across your lawn for that uniform magazine cover green, you are dropping a biological smoke bomb onto this entire invisible infrastructure. These chemicals don't just kill insects. They distort the natural ultraviolet signatures and delicate electrical fields of native flowers. The neon signs go dark. The map the bees memorized gets wiped blank. They fly into your yard expecting the vibrant destination they were sent to by the Waggle dance and find a silent, toxic void. Even the plants you treat as nuisances, dandelions, creeping clover, are often the brightest, most critical beacons for a bee emerging hungry in early spring. When you pull them by the root or douse them in herbicide, you're extinguishing the only visible food source available to them. You are starving them to death in the name of aesthetics. Aesthetics that only make sense to creatures who can't see ultraviolet light. Every time you wipe out a patch of clover, you are severing a lifeline that has sustained this ecosystem for millions of years because you prefer the look of flat, uniform grass. And there's one more thing the bees notice about you personally, something most people never realize. If you lean in close to a flower to watch a foraging bee, it doesn't just register you as a slow-moving shape, it senses a chemical shift. When you exhale, you release a plume of carbon dioxide. To a bee, a sudden spike in CO2 is a universal alarm signal. The same biological signature as a bear or a skunk tearing apart a hive. When you breathe on a foraging bee, its brain instantly flags you as a lethal predator. The flower disappears. The threat takes over. This is why bees sometimes become defensive or abandon a perfect bloom when you've simply leaned in too close to look. Your breath to a bee is an act of war. The world operating in your backyard is larger, faster, and more complex than your eyes will ever allow you to perceive. The silence of your garden is an illusion, masking a wild, glowing, hyper-intelligent ecosystem built on secret light, ancient maps, and invisible electricity. We are guests in their ultraviolet metropolis, and we have spent generations tearing it apart without even knowing it existed. The good news is that fixing it is simple. Plant native flowers, leave the dandelions alone, put down the pesticides. You don't need to see their world to protect it, you just need to know it's there. If you want to keep uncovering the hidden biology and psychology of the animals we share this planet with, subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And tell us in the comments, have you ever noticed bees completely ignoring your garden center flowers while swarming a simple patch of clover in the grass? We'd love to hear about the hidden visitors in your yard. Until next time, stay curious, leave the dandelions alone, and remember, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there.